The idea of Stairway was to have a piece of music, a composition, whereby it would just keep unfolding into more, more layers and more moods, and actually the whole intensity of or subtlety and the intensity of the overlay of the composition would actually...
He wasn't just the genius behind Led Zeppelin. Jimmy Page was the man who rewrote the rules of rock. But behind all the riffs and roaring crowds, he carried a secret no one ever saw coming. At 81, Page has finally opened up, revealing the 6 legendary guitarists he truly couldn't stand. And the truth cuts deep. These weren't just competitors. They were people who mocked him, froze him out, and in some cases, straight up betrayed him. While fans believed they were all brothers in rock, the names he's dropping now will leave jaws on the floor, and the stories behind them are darker than anyone imagined. Number 1, Eric Clapton, the one rival Jimmy Page could never shake. The tension between them started long before Zeppelin even existed, and it never cooled off. It all began one night at the Marquee Club when someone joked that Page was catching up to Clapton. Clapton heard it, turned his head, and gave Page a cold smirk, the kind that says everything without a single word. That single look lit a fire that burned for decades. By 1964, Clapton was already the golden boy of British rock. Fans were scribbling "Clapton is God" on walls, and Page had to walk past it every time he headed to the studio. Sure, Page respected his playing, but Clapton's smug vibe soured everything. When Clapton stormed out of the Yardbirds in 1965, furious about the band's pop direction, he soon found out they'd asked Page to replace him. Page turned it down, but that didn't stop Clapton from losing it. He started calling Page a studio vulture all over the clubs in Richmond and Soho, spreading that nickname like wildfire. Things hit another level of ugly in 1967 at Olympic Studios. Page had been quietly working with drummer Jim Gordon on a new idea, when suddenly Clapton swooped in and took Gordon for his own project. No warning, no heads up. Page felt straight up ambushed. That same night, he told an engineer, "Eric needs a new band every year because he drains the last one dry." That quote spread through the scene like gossip gasoline. Clapton didn't let it slide either. In 1968, during a BBC interview, he dropped a line that cut deep. "Some players use effects when their fingers don't have much to say." Everyone knew exactly who he was talking about. Page, with his signature layered production and experimental sound. And when Led Zeppelin conquered America in 1969, Clapton brushed them off completely, calling their sound too loud to mean anything. Page snapped, but only in private. He told friends at Apple Studios that Clapton had turned into a blues museum guide, stuck in the past while the world moved on. The bitterness reached its peak in 1975, backstage at Madison Square Garden. Clapton spotted Page, muttered, "Not tonight," and turned away. Page didn't respond. He just walked out. No words, no scene, just silence, thick enough to cut with a guitar string. And even now, after all these years, they still steer clear of each other. No handshake, no nod, not even a glance of respect. Whatever started between them in those smoky 60s clubs never healed. And at this point, it never will. Number 2. Jimi Hendrix, the one guitarist Jimmy Page never wanted to face. Hendrix didn't need to say a single word to set Page off. His very presence in London was enough to shake things up. The moment Hendrix stepped on stage at the Scotch of St. James in late September 1966, the whispers started flying, and Page hated what he was hearing. Suddenly, people weren't talking about his latest studio magic anymore. All the buzz was about this wild American guitarist lighting up the city. It got ugly fast. By the time Hendrix hit the bag o' nails a week later, Page's own friends were saying it out loud. "He makes everyone else sound careful." That line burned deep. Page never admitted it publicly, but jealousy hit him like a sucker punch. One musician remembered seeing him at the Cromwellian muttering, "He shows up for a night and everyone forgets the last 10 years. Then came March 31st, 1967, the Astoria Theater incident. The night Hendrix set his guitar on fire. The crowd lost their minds, roaring like it was the second coming of rock itself. Page was watching from the side and muttered bitterly, "Right, that's where we're going now. Bonfires." People around him laughed, but Page didn't find it funny at all. The London club scene loved stirring the pot, comparing the two non-stop at spots like the Speakeasy, asking who the real innovator was. To his credit, Hendrix tried to be cool about it. He even asked Page a few times about his recording setups and techniques, but Page kept his answers short and cold, shutting the conversations down before they could even start. Music journalist Charles Shaar Murray once wrote that Page described Hendrix's playing to friends as chaos disguised as brilliance. Word got back to Hendrix, who just shrugged it off, saying, "He's allowed to think that." But the real breaking point came in early 1969 when a reporter asked Page what he thought about Hendrix being called the greatest guitarist alive. Page didn't sugarcoat a thing. "Some people like fireworks. I prefer music." The room went silent. Everyone knew who that was aimed at. When Hendrix tragically died in September 1970, most assumed Page would pay his respects or join the tributes. But he didn't show up, didn't make a statement, nothing. Those close to him claimed the same thing. Page just couldn't bring himself to honor the man who'd replaced him in the hearts of an entire generation. Number 3, Keith Richards, the Clash Jimmy Page never let go of. The moment Keith called Led Zeppelin a bit of a joke, Page locked him into a category that almost no one ever escaped from. Their feud came from pure irritation, two totally different visions of rock that could never meet in the middle. By the late 60s, both the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin ruled London, but they stood for opposite worlds. Keith swore by the Church of Simplicity: raw chords, ragged riffs, no effects, no gimmicks. Page, on the other hand, believed in layers, power, and pushing every boundary possible. And that's exactly where their storm began. Page lived for layers, for turning sound into something cinematic. He built rock songs like movies, full of mystery, tension, and explosions. But that very magic made him a target, especially when people kept comparing him to Keith Richards. It drove both of them crazy. One night in 1969 at the legendary Speakeasy Club, a journalist asked Keith the wrong question. "What do you think of Page's guitar work on Dazed and Confused?" Richards smirked and fired back with a line that cut deep. "Great player. Shame he hides behind production." That comment spread through London faster than smoke in a pub. Within hours, Page heard it before even leaving the studio that night. His response was sharp as ice. "Keith thinks 5 chords make him Chuck Berry." And from that moment, the battle lines were drawn. By 1973, things only got worse. During a private NME listening session, Richards called Led Zeppelin's sound overbearing. What he didn't realize? One of Page's close friends was sitting right behind him. The message got back immediately, and Page's reply was brutal. He confuses minimalism with laziness. From that point on, there was no turning back. Their closest encounter came in 1975, backstage at Madison Square Garden, a room thick with tension. Witnesses said Page walked in just as Keith was ranting about bands who steal blues riffs and drown them in echo. Page froze mid-step. Keith didn't even look up. The air went dead quiet, the silence so sharp it could slice through steel. Not a single word exchanged, but everyone there felt the feud burning under the surface, and it never cooled. Through the 80s and 90s, Keith kept tossing insults in interviews, calling Zeppelin hollow and directionless. Page never clapped back publicly, but he made his stance clear: total shutout. He refused to attend industry events if the Stones were involved, no matter the occasion. Even decades later, when most old rivalries faded, this one stayed ice cold. Keith couldn't resist dropping little digs in conversations, and Page's silence, that stiff, polite distance, became its own message. Number 4, Eddie Van Halen, the prodigy who triggered Jimmy Page's fury. The day Van Halen's debut album hit in 1978, the entire guitar world flipped upside down, and Page felt it immediately. He didn't hate Eddie at first. What he hated was what Eddie represented. A whole new generation of shredders suddenly made Page look like an artifact overnight. Every young guitarist from Los Angeles to London to Tokyo wanted to tap, shred, and race across the fretboard like Eddie, not build mystical soundscapes like Page. The energy was shifting fast, and the old guard could feel it. Within weeks, studio gossip started buzzing in Page's circle. Engineers at Sunset Sound couldn't stop talking about eruption, calling it a revolution. Then came the magazines, glossy covers screaming, "Eddie Van Halen, the future of guitar," and that headline alone cut deeper than any insult could. Page, the man who once redefined guitar itself, was now being treated like yesterday's news. It wasn't personal, at least not at first, but for a legend like Jimmy Page, that sting never really faded. Page felt blindsided, like the whole world had suddenly flipped on him. He once told a close friend at the Marquee Club, "This isn't evolution, it's circus tricks." That line revealed everything about his frustration. Deep down, Page feared that the art of guitar, his art, was being replaced by flashy stunts and speed runs that looked impressive but meant nothing. Things came to a head in 1979, backstage at the massive Nebworth Festival. Someone casually brought up Eddie Van Halen's tapping technique, calling it revolutionary. Page didn't let that slide for a second. A witness claimed he muttered, "Revolutionary or desperate?" And that remark spread through the entire touring circuit like wildfire. Everyone in the scene heard about it within days. By 1980, the tension had hit a full boil. Page was in a Los Angeles studio, deep into overdubs, when an assistant, trying to set the vibe, played Eruption over the monitors. Huge mistake. Page froze, shut his guitar case without a word, and said he'd be back tomorrow. The assistant later swore he heard Page mutter under his breath, "I've had enough of bedroom gymnastics." That single phrase summed up his whole attitude. He saw Eddie's lightning-fast style as more spectacle than soul. And even decades later, when Eddie passed in 2020, Page sent his condolences, but avoided saying much else. No interviews, no big statements, just silence. And that silence spoke louder than any tribute could. Eddie wasn't just another rival to him. He was the symbol of a new era, one that Page secretly wished had never arrived. Number 5. Richie Blackmore, the mirror Jimmy Page hated seeing. Richie Blackmore got under Page's skin from day one. From the first comparisons between Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, it was like throwing gasoline on a fire. By 1970, Deep Purple in rock and Led Zeppelin II were going head-to-head for the same headlines, the same crowds, the same glory. Page didn't mind competition, but he couldn't stand Blackmore's ego. Blackmore played like every note was a weapon, and he talked like he'd invented the whole arsenal himself. One story from 1971 still gets passed around among musicians. Page was at Delaney Studios when someone played Deep Purple's Speed King and joked, "Looks like Blackmore just outgunned every guitarist in England." Page didn't laugh, didn't even smirk. He simply said, "If he wants a sword fight, he should join the circus." That line wasn't just shade. It was Page acknowledging exactly what bothered him. Blackmore's over-the-top theatrical style, the kind of dramatic flair Page despised. But Blackmore could throw punches too, and he did. In a German radio interview around 1974, he laughed while talking about Page's studio-heavy sound, mocking him for hiding behind layers and echo instead of just playing raw. Take away the echo and you've got a different guitarist entirely. That was Richie Blackmore's jab, and it sliced right through Jimmy Page's pride. The comment spread across the industry like wildfire, and it hit Page where it hurt the most. Everyone knew he built his sound through layers and studio craft, so hearing someone reduce it to echo stung like betrayal. Their quiet war, that tense, unspoken rivalry, reached its breaking point in 1974 at Musicland Studios in Munich. Blackmore walked in unannounced to visit a producer, not realizing Page was already there mixing. Witnesses said the moment Page spotted him, he froze, stood up, grabbed his coat, and walked straight out without a single word. And just as he hit the door, he muttered under his breath, "I'm not sticking around for costume rehearsals." Everyone in the room knew exactly who that was aimed at, and what it meant. The truth? Page and Blackmore were almost too alike for comfort. Both were perfectionists to the point of obsession. Both hated being praised too easily, and both saw in each other something that made them uneasy, a reflection of themselves. It wasn't just rivalry, it was mirror envy, pure and raw. Even decades later, that chill never thawed. Festivals, award shows, tribute nights, they'd end up in the same place, but never near each other. No handshake, no photo, not even a polite nod across the room. And now, after all these years, Jimmy Page has finally opened up, revealing the 5 guitarists he truly despised the most. The rivalries, the grudges, the silence, all of it shaped the legend behind the mystery. Every rivalry Jimmy Page endured became a chapter in the secret history of rock, a tale carved not in peace, but in pride, silence, and pure genius. These weren't random feuds. They were deep, soul-scratching rivalries that shaped him into the legend the world still can't stop talking about. Each name, Clapton, Hendrix, Richards, Van Halen, and Blackmore, represented a different wound. a different test, and a different kind of reflection he couldn't escape. By the time the 80s faded, most of his rivals had mellowed out, softened by years and distance. But not Page. He carried it all like old armor, heavy, dented, but unbreakable. Those grudges, those moments of quiet rage, were fuel for his fire. He didn't need to speak about them. His music said everything. The haunting sound of his guitar, the hypnotic layers, the cinematic builds, all of it came from a man who had turned competition into creation. When people asked why he kept so silent about the past, Page would just smile, that knowing smile, the kind that said, "You wouldn't understand." And maybe that was true. To him, these rivalries weren't gossip. They were survival. Every insult, every sideways glance in a club, every word spread through London's buzzing music scene, it all sharpened him. It pushed him to go bigger, bolder, louder. He didn't chase fame, he chased greatness, and the tension between those legends pushed him straight into immortality. He never made peace with Clapton, never traded words with Richards, never rehashed the old storms with Blackmore, and when Eddie Van Halen passed, Page's quiet tribute said more than any statement ever could. Even in that silence, you could feel the respect, twisted with regret, shaped by decades of distance. The world saw rivals, but in truth, what connected them was something deeper, a shared hunger to be the best, no matter the cost. By the 2000s, Page became the ghost in the machine, a myth more than a man. His name carried weight, his presence demanded reverence. You could feel it when he walked into a room. Even without words, everyone knew they were standing near history. Time softened the edges of his grudges, but it never erased the memory of those who once stood toe-to-toe with him. Those 5 names were carved into his story forever, not as enemies, but as the sparks that kept the fire alive. Now, at 81, when Jimmy Page finally looks back, he doesn't see rivals anymore. He sees the evolution of his own legend. The laughter, the silence, the clashes, the long walks out of studios without a word. They were all part of the journey that built the man who made rock sound like a storm. And as his truth finally comes to light, one thing's for sure. Jimmy Page didn't just play the guitar. He commanded it, battled through his own shadows, and came out timeless. If you loved uncovering this wild side of rock history, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next story will hit even harder. See you in the next video.